can you hear me now properly?
Yes.
Okay. So I am Akhilesh. I've been working in one of the MNC for the last 5 years. In those 5 years, I've been working on RPA for at least more than 4 years. So I have major hands-on on UiPath, Blue Prism, uh, Pega Robotics, automation environment, and all those things. So today we'll see a demonstration on RPA with UiPath. So basically, once let me share my screen first. So basically, what's RPA? So that whatever we do manually, so we are coding it in such a way that a piece of code would handle that manual things and do it in a fast method. Like suppose if you are logging into an application, so we type the username, password, and click on the login button. So for us, it might take at least 3 to 5 seconds to enter the login information. But if you work with RPA, one of the advantages is that it is very fast and it is very reliable. So as if you preload the username and password into it and ask the software to log into one of the application, so as soon as the application gets loaded, it quickly log into it within 1 or 2 seconds. So basically what RPA is that it mimics the human actions, and also it performs all the actions done by the humans, which are very repetitive, which are rule based. It is also very fast and it is also reliable. So yeah, so you can see that whatever I've just said, it is right here. And one of the major important thing is that, so whatever an RPA bot has to do, so first we have to code it into it. Our bot in such a way that it has to perform a specific type of action, or specific type of action, so that it doesn't do any other thing. So it is very much different from artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is something where we feed the bot so much of data in such a way that whenever there is a new case of similar kind of thing, the bot usually thinks of its own kind and performs the actions. But whereas in RPA, it only performs those things which it is intended to. Like if you have asked the bot to perform A plus B, it will only do A plus B. But whereas in AI bot, if you have feeded the bot with many such expressions like A plus B, A minus B, A cross B, all these things. So whenever you ask it for whenever, suppose in future, if you have asked it for A divided by B, then it performs A divided B. But whereas in RPA bot, if you feed the code in such a way that you have done only the A plus B part and you haven't done the A minus B part, so it will throw an error. That means in RPA, whatever the bot has to do, first the programmer has to code it into it, so that it does only that thing. It won't do any extra things. So whatever we code into the RPA bot, it does only that. So basically, this is the general process, how the uh, how the things go on within the industry. So basically, these are all the application, different types of applications, and these are the products or the customers or the applications over there. So in between that, there is a digital workforce or the human workforce. A digital workforce is something which runs within the background, and human workforce is something which we normally work on the applications. So this is how our work in day to day life goes on. But if you bring RPA into the picture, within this digital workforce, the RPA comes into this scenario. So whatever the human, it mimics the human actions, and whatever the human does whatever the humans do in day-to-day life, like log into the app. Suppose if a person has to log into the application or and do some calculations based on those things, so RPA bot can do all those things. So this is where RPA comes in. Now majorly there are so for every application, for every software and everything, we have the pros and cons, right? So when it comes to RPA, there are relatively more number of advantages than the disadvantages. We'll come back to the disadvantage later. First thing is that uh, suppose if you're working on a particular subject, the human is working on a particular subject, and uh, and mistakenly he has done some error. So it normally happens to any one of us. So but with RPA bot, if it has been coded to perform in a single way, it will only do it in that way only. It doesn't divert, it doesn't do any other thing. So unless and until we code it in a wrong way, the RP bot never it will never do any errors. So that is one of the advantage. As I said before, it improves the productivity. Like if a human is capable of doing a single work in at least in suppose in 5 to 6 minutes, the RPO bot can do it in within couple of minutes. So by this in this way, and time. If you come to the cost, if suppose if 10 people are working on a single project, and a single RPA bot can do all those work within the same day. So in that way, the RPA bot is saving the cost and time. That is one of the advantage. And also you can easily identify the bugs. Suppose as I've said, so whenever we code the RPA bot in such a way that it only performs a single task, if we have coded it in a wrong way, it wouldn't do that particular intended task. So in this way, we would identify the bugs normally. And also, yeah, one of the myth is that to learn RPA and everything, you need strong programming skills and all. But that is not necessary here. But by saying this, I would also like to say that even if you have a very normal programming skills, like even if you understand the basic algorithms and all those things, it would be an advantage in learning RPA. So this is also one of the advantages by RPA. You need not be a very strong technical person, very strong. You don't have to learn about all these Java languages, C++ languages. If you have a basic idea about the basic algorithms, how would you solve a given problem and all those things, then that would be fine. And one of the advantages that it can automate the large number of processes. uh, yeah, and also it requires less training to learn RPA. Okay, now we will see what are the disadvantages. uh, yeah, one of the disadvantages is that when suppose in a given industry, if you're working on a project and we have worked on the project, we have successfully tested it and put into the production, then what happens is that suppose within the process, if there is a small change, normally what a human does is that while he's working on the project, he will just normally check for the difference from the later process to the first process, and then he'll normally do it. But whereas in RPA, what we have to do is we have to go back to the code, we have to change the part of the code, we have to test it again, and we have to deploy it again, and we have to make sure that the changed process is working 100% fine. So this is one of the disadvantage. Like even for small change also, we have to change the code. That is one of the disadvantage. uh, and also, like I said, the RPA bots are very fast and all those things. But it also depends, the speed and nature of the bot also depends on the type of the application. Suppose normally if you are opening a web application, so suppose if you are opening a Google, if you are opening the Google website is very fast compared to if you are opening a Gmail website. So in those cases, the RPA bot works faster on the Google website than on the Gmail website. So this is one to say that the bot speed of the bot also depends on the nature of the application. And next, yeah. But these are the common myths about RPA. So like I've said, so you don't need to be having the very good coding skills, or don't need to be a strong programmer to learn RPA. Coding skills can learn RPA and do it much better. And second one is that this is the one of the major common misconception, where people think that once you develop a bot and put into the production, you don't need any human supervision and all. But that is not true, because even if RPA bot is even if an RPA bot is working on a project, it has been coded by a person. So as we are humans, we are entitled to do some small mistakes. So suppose if it's a very small process, that is okay. We have tested it multiple times. It has been tested multiple times and made sure that nothing goes wrong and all those things. But but if you are working on a very large project, very large project, suppose it involves a couple of applications, it involves the Excels and all those things. So in those cases, what happens is that as a programmer, we might be doing some small mistakes, which might affect the performance or the nature of the bot. So this one myth is that there is one myth is that the once we develop the bot and everything, we won't be needing any human supervision to check on the bot. That is not true. We have to check the bot. We have to analyze the reports if it is performing properly accordingly to the process or not. So that is one of the myths. Yeah. For the RPA implementation, so there are first we will go to this one. There are different tools on RPA within the market right now. So some of the major tools are the UiPath, Blue Prism, Automation Anywhere, Pega Robotics, which was formerly called OpenSpan, and Nice Automation. Apart from this, also there are 5 to 6 more tools, but majorly many of the organizations use these tools, and within these tools, UiPath is more of a free source kind of tool. I wouldn't say it free source because it has a community edition. We can use the community edition and do it. But apart from that, if you are going to use it within an organization, within an MNC or within an organization to perform the repetitive task and everything, they charge for the license. And when it comes to the Blue Prism is also a very good tool. Blue Prism and Pega Robotics, they both charge very much for the tool and the support, and similarly Automation Anywhere also. These are the different tools which are used normally in the industry for RPA. Among those tools, today we will see about the UiPath, which is a basic demo of UiPath. So generally, where the RPA is implemented. So RPA can be implemented in those areas where the tasks are repetitive, where the human intervention is not needed. There are two kinds of RPA implementation also. One is the human attended intervention, and where is the unattended bots. So in the unattended bots, what it does is that the bot will take up a case. It will work from starting to end, from end to end, and it does not require any human intervention within it. Later, when we analyze the reports and all, might come into the picture, but this is the unattended way. And there is an attended way where, suppose if there is an application which requires I don't know if you all have an idea about the RSA tokens kind of thing. where you would get an OTP on some kind of device, and if you have to log into an application, you have to enter your username, password, and that OTP into that. So in these kinds of scenarios, has to log into one of the application. So in this case, as the OTP changes every now and then, the bot cannot read it from a physical machine. So in those cases, what we have to do is that we will code the bot in such a way that it will enter the login and password, and it will wait for the human to enter that OTP kind of thing, and then click on the login button. So this is a very small example of the attended bot. So in these cases, these are the two types of attended and the unattended bots. Now, now we will see in what kind of industries this RPA can be implemented and all. Majorly, RPA can be implemented in the banking, HR resources, next the medical insurances kind of things. It can be used within the telecommunications. It can be used in the data entry, all these kind of things. So this is a quick introduction of RPA. Does anyone have any doubts on till now? So once we are done with this, we will move to the main UiPath part. Okay, I assume no one has doubts on this thing, RPA part. Then now we move to the UiPath. So this is the UiPath Studio. Basically, UiPath Studio consists of three major parts. One is the studio, one is the orchestrator, and the other one is the UI Robo. And for the studio, and normally the studio is a it's a very normal thing. If you have earlier worked on the MS Visio, it looks similarly to that. In this we have three types of in this we have three types of workflows. One is the four types of workflows. One is the normal process, one is the transactional process, one is the state machines, and other one is the RE frameworks. So now I would give the general introduction, what all are there and what not are there. So this is the studio, and for the orchestrator, orchestrator is a web-based application. Uh, this is the yeah. With this URL, we can access the demo orchestrator, which is given by the UiPath. So we can sign into it and we can see it. One second, just let me log into this orchestrator once. Yeah. If everyone can see, this is the orchestrator part of the UiPath. It's a web-based application. You have to log into this application, and here you have different things like robots, jobs, queues, processes, triggers, assets, and everything. We will come back to this later. I just wanted to show you the UI, how it is there and everything. Suppose if you want to configure a machine within the orchestrator, you have to configure it in the within the machines. And if you have to configure any robots, you have to do it here. If you want to add any users to this particular account, we can do this in the users tab. And suppose if you have to add any passwords, if you have to, like normally what happens in RPA is that you're not supposed to share your password to any other person. But if a bot is working on any of the application, if a bot is working on any of the application, normally it requires a user ID and password. Generally what happens in all the organizations is that they create a bot IDs and do the actions on the application. But even if it is a bot ID also, even if it is a bot ID also, the organization policies are in such a way that the password sharing is strictly prohibited. So in this case, what we do is that we go to the assets, and here a user would add the username and password in such so that that can be later retrieved by the bot using this UI robo. This is the UI robot. Within this, we have to configure the, if you go to the settings, here we have to give the orchestrator URL and machine key. Machine key we would get it from the machines once we configure it. So all those things, once we do it and click on connect, it will be shown here as connected and licensed. So this is how UiPath Studio and Orchestrator communicate with each other with the help of the UI Robo. Right now, I am using the 2018.4.5 version for the studio. We'll go back to the studio and see what are its basic features and all. So normally, this is how we will open a UiPath. This is how it looks if you open a UiPath Studio. It is very similar to MS Visio. It's normally a flowchart kind of thing. It is normally like you have to draw flowcharts and all those things. So first we'll go since we are doing a basic thing, I'll go to creating a small process. Yeah. This is if everyone can see, this is the normal studio of UiPath. On here you can see the in menu bar you would have the start, design, and execute. Within the start, it is nothing. You will go back to the same previous screen. But whatever we do, it lies in everything in the design tab and the execute. Once we have developed everything, suppose if you want to check how it is running and everything. Suppose if you have to run the project and everything, you'll come to the execute tab. So first we'll move to the design tab. Here we will click on new. We'll take a normal flow chart. Yeah, this is the flow chart. As you can see, onto the left side you'll have three different tabs: project, activities, and snippets. So project is something like if you right click on it and click on the open project, all your project files are located within a folder. So this is my project name, and within this project name, these two are the workflows. Normally whatever we do, it is called a workflow. You can see there are two tabs here, right? Main and the flowchart. These two are called two different workflows, and the workflow names are main and the flowchart. So whenever you're working on, even if it's a small project or a big project, the main workflow would be named as, we would name it as main. So if you can, we can rename it to any other thing also, that doesn't matter. We can call different workflows within the we can call other workflows within the workflows also. Everything, so all the project hierarchy, you can see it in the project tab, and this is the activities. So suppose if you have to click on any of the application, you'll click on, you will add click mouse. You can use, sorry, you have to drag and drop it from the left to the within the middle position. So what this click activity does is that, once you so you have to mention the target also. If you open it, it will show, it will click on the indicate screen. So in this, what we'll do is that we'll ask it to click on this ABC. So if you run it, what it will do is, it has to click on ABC. So now it has clicked. So these are normally the kinds of activities you can find it on the left side of this thing. And the right side, you would have the properties. Suppose for this activity, these are the properties, and for this flowchart, these are the properties. You can change the name of the flowchart. You can see name of the flowchart has been changed, sample flowchart. So all these, there are different properties. Suppose for this mouse click also, there are different properties onto the right hand side. These are normally these properties, you can find it for any activities. See, all these activities. Now if you come to the bottom, these are the variable section. If you want to add any variable, excuse me. If you want to add any variable, suppose if you are adding a string variable, you name the variable, and this is the variable type, string type. And if you want to add, we can come back to scope later. And default variable, uh, if you want to give any default value to the variable, you can add it in here and all those things. Suppose if you want to give a integer variable, you can change the variable type to int32. Or if you want to have, if you want a double kind of variable, you have to click on the browse for types and search for double within the MS Corlib. Uh, yeah. So the type of the variable we want to do is system.double. So we can select the double in this way. Suppose if you want to add any kind of image variable, you can go on to that. So all those things. So this is how we select the different types of variables and everything. This is normally a general introduction. So I'll tell you the different, we can record screens also. First we'll come from the start. So this is how you create a new this is how you create new workflows within a project. You'll go to new and click on it and select the kind of thing you want to see, you want to develop, and then we'll do it in next way. Next, after this, you have to, if you want to save this particular flowchart, you'll click on save. And if you want to save everything within the project, we'll click on save all. Now save as template is something where once you have finished your development, you want it to be in a readable format, within English format. You want to read it in English. Right now, I don't have the enough resources on my machine, so we can't do that. Like I've showed, if you want to run the, if you want to run the project, we'll click on run. And these are the managed packages. Suppose if you want to work on any of the activity which is not already there within this activities bar, we'll go to the manage packages, and we'll search for a thing. Suppose if you want to work on this particular activity, we will select this activity, we'll click on this install package, and once it is installed, it will show it in a green color. Right now it is installed. We'll click on save. So all those activities, you can see it in the activities bar. Now, suppose you if you feel that all this coding has been it is very tough, and it is very lengthy process. And if you have very small steps, if you have any small steps to do the automation, what we'll do is we'll go on to the recording. We'll click on the recording, and what it can do is that it will record everything your mouse or the keyboard do. It will do everything, like if you're entering a URL and everything, it will do those things. And it will record it, it will record the entire session, and put it together in a form of a code and give it to you. And this is how recording works. And screen scraping is nothing like, if you want to gather any data from a screen, and if you don't want to if you don't want data manually from an application. So in this case, screen recording and data scraping is helps you out. And if you come to the user events, suppose if you want your automation to work on a mouse click, and once you click to your mouse, you would want your automation to start normally. So this is how mouse click works, and all the user events starts. UI Explorer is something where you would work on the application properties and everything. We can come back to that later. And if you click on the remove unused variables, suppose I have these two variables here, and I haven't used these two variables anywhere within my flowchart. So if I click on the remove unused variables, those variables are removed. So this is normally used whenever we are working on a large project and we want to clean up the project. So this is when it is used. Now export to Excel. If you click on this, all this thing is exported into an Excel. This all flowchart is exported into the Excel, and it is given in a readable format. Yeah, you can see now here, this is the sample flowchart which we have created. Normally what it does is that once we click on the export Excel, it gives the readable format of a flowchart, or readable format of whatever you're working in. It gives you that. And publish is something, if once you have worked on your project, and you want this project to run on another machine, what you can do is that you need not export the code from this machine to another machine. There is a way you can export your project to the orchestrator. In the orchestrator, you can configure the another machine within the orchestrator, so that once you publish this code into that orchestrator and configure another machine, and run that published project in a different machine. So this is how publish works. Using this publish, we can run a same piece of code in multiple machines at the same time, or you can run it in a scheduled way. It is our wish. So this is the normal introduction of UiPath. Do any of you have any doubts on this till now?
I'm good.